right, time now is 6 p.m. and a very warm welcome to you all. Thank you so much for joining us on this webinar edition of Global Age Leaders. And today we shall be exploring the theme or topic titled The Art of Public Speaking. So why did we choose this topic and who am I? My name is Daudi Mugabi. I'll be your moderator this evening, and I am one of the facilitators and founding members of Global Age Leaders. Public speaking is one of those skills that we all need, whether it be in a professional setting or in a social setting at home or at a function or even amongst peers. Every now and then we are called upon to make a presentation or a speech. And when we're not prepared, when we don't have those skills, we fail to stick the landing. Mastering these skills could be the difference between landing that job through persuasive and charismatic speaking or being knocked off the candidate list. So today, we've invited two professionals to help us appreciate and learn how to apply these skills in our day-to-day lives. This is a webinar that I believe each and everybody needs to watch and to share so that we can become better presenters. How many times have you been at a function and somebody is asked to speak for 5 minutes and then they ramble on for 30 to 40 minutes because they've failed to collect their thoughts and express them within the allocated time? So this evening, we're going to explore all those techniques required to make a masterful presentation, one that can move the audience and have an impact. I'll now move on to Global Age Leaders. What is Global Age Leaders and why do we host such webinars? Global Age Leaders is a platform that was founded specifically to empower people with leadership skills. And the leadership skills that we look at are those that are not often emphasized in other spaces. This could be personal branding or how to effectively use AI tools, or as in today's case, public speaking and presentation mastery. So we explore a number of themes and topics that we do labor on in our workshops every weekend. And from every time and then we have webinars like this where we have external parties come and share their expert advice on a few of these key skills. Just like today we have public speaking. Now, I would like to invite one of our panelists or presenters, Geraldine Mukesha. Just so you know, we have two presenters today, Brian Chira and Geraldine Mukesha. They are both from an organization called the SOKI Initiative. And at this juncture, I would like to welcome Geraldine to first give us an overview of who SOKI are before we delve into the actual presentation about public speaking. So Geraldine, the floor is yours. Kindly let us know about SOKI Initiative.
Thank you, Daudi. Thank you for inviting us here. We're happy to be here. And hello, everybody. Good evening. Thank you for joining the call. We are glad that you will join us today, and we are excited about how the evening is going to flow. I will invite Brian to speak about SOKI. I like how he speaks about SOKI, so I'll invite him to speak about SOKI today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Geraldine. Now, we may write home about it in different ways, but the truth is, what makes us human, what makes us exceptional at any endeavor is largely written in the same code. And by this, I mean, what is to an exceptional long-distance runner days of toil, long-distance runs, easy runs, speed workouts, strength training, has been lived in essence by an exceptional public speaker. And I bet you that you will see it in the gait of his speech when he takes stage. The art of public speaking is an art like any other. And therefore, what that means is that it requires the same level of dedication. It requires the same level of constant application. And what we do at Soki Initiative is demystify what this process really looks like. Make it accessible to everyone to know that you too can become a great public speaker or an effective communicator that if you constantly apply yourself. I often like to reference Vusi, that is Vusi Tembekwayo, where he says that when we look at success or when we look at exceptional individuals, there is one thing that we often forget: the process. The magic is truly in the process. But then, oftentimes, even if the things that we are going to talk about today are not unique, as truly they are not unique, but oftentimes they elude us. The Soki Initiative is here to close that gap. Think of it as we are your magicians, and today's session is that session where we pull back the curtain and let you know why you saw a rabbit earlier on and you no longer see it a second later. That is what we shall be doing today, but most importantly, that is the goal and purpose of the Soki Initiative in as far as public speaking is concerned. And I believe that I've said a little bit about it, something that should be satisfactory if you would like to know about the Soki Initiative in this particular context. But to get right into the magic that I earlier talked about, the process. What is it that you are going to have to do that is going to set you apart as a speaker? Oftentimes when we are carrying out trainings, one of the questions that we are asked, or some of the challenges that we are told beset many people are, and at the top of that list is, I have stage fright. How can I possibly harness every little amount of strength within me to make sure that when I get up to a stage, I'm not shaking and I project confidence? How do we go about that? And again, several anecdotes have been given by a number of people. Countless times I've heard of individuals and facilitators that have told people that you can simply focus at the foreheads of your audience. Do not look them in the eye. The foreheads will be your trick. And I like to differ. I really beg to differ always. I find that will not sustainably help you if you are trying to project confidence. What you need to do, and these are some of the tools that we like to equip our students with. You want to be the speaker that peers into your audience's soul. How do you do that? You connect with them. And as has often been said, the eyes are the window to any human soul. Look them in the eye when you speak. Forget the foreheads. Look your audience in the eyes when you speak. But that said, I would like to zero in on one of the more critical components. If you recalled, in my introduction, I talked about the imperative of practice, the imperative of embracing what we often call the toiling, the process. And again, if you should remember anything, remember the magic is in the process. What does the process entail? The process entails preparation. Preparation. I cannot overemphasize that, because it is in constantly, again, applying yourself that you are going to effect that which you have mentally visualized. Many times we think that when a great speaker is speaking, they're perhaps delivering that speech for the very first time. Or we think that they were born talented and as such, they do not need to overly invest as any other human would. But that is where we get it wrong. It's often been said that when Dr. Martin Luther King delivered his I Have a Dream speech, he had actually delivered parts of that speech way before. You listen to it for the first time. Well, we might not have people who were in that audience then, but the people that listened to him then found him to be genius. They found him to be a great orator, and it could have easily come off as if he was simply an exceptional speaker. Now, is there a place for talent in this, natural talent? I cannot deny that. There are people that are born with an edge over others. But can we still leverage through constant application and become better at it? Yes, we can. As is an elite athlete, so will be a great public speaker. You're going to have to put in the time. So when we talk about practice, I really cannot overemphasize it. You need to constantly apply yourself to put yourself in a position that you're ultimately going to see yourself when you deliver the speech. What does practice look like? Today you've been given, Today you have been given a speech to deliver. What would be the first thing that you do? What would be the first thing that you would do? Golden nugget. 1, you will research about that topic. And I'm talking about instances where you have to speak and you have been preparing, or you have the benefit of time to prepare. We shall talk about impromptu speaking later. But for now, let's talk about where you have the benefit of time to prepare. You will have to research. And as I often say, you want to strive to be the most knowledgeable person about that topic in the room. What does research do for you? Research imbues you with the confidence that you will ultimately stand upon when you are delivering your speech. There is nothing as appalling as a speaker who has not researched. And many times, and especially when we are dealing with audiences that know a thing or two about the subject, it will be seen. As I said, an exceptional public speaker will be seen. The gait of their speech will be seen. You can tell who is clearly confident and is prepared for a speaking opportunity. Many times, if you're not well researched, you are going to show that, and sometimes it really does end up in you being nervous. Why would you be nervous? Well, in your head, there is a little voice that keeps reminding you that you do not meet the bar. You do not meet the bar because you have not prepared. And most times, you're still thinking that there is someone in the audience who is able to tell. So then what do? Make sure that you research thoroughly. And the research does not stop at just the area that you will be discussing, the area of knowledge that you will be discussing. It also entails knowing your audience. Which audience are you going to be addressing? Are they largely Muslim? Are they Christian? Is it an audience of younger people, and as such you have to dress up a little hip? How are you going to structure your message to reach home? You have to know who exactly it is that you will be speaking to. That still is encompassed in your research. Practice, the other thing that I need to hint on is, how deliberate does it have to be? As I said, it's going to be toiling. And that is if you want to be exceptional. You're going to have to be so meticulous and so down to the detail that you are going to measure and be deliberate about everything you say and every gesture you make. How does that happen? The process includes writing down that speech, rehearsing that speech. And I like to put a pin here and try to downplay one of the things that people often say when we say rehearse your speech. We've often been told that rehearsing a speech is like cramming the speech, which in effect would be sin when you are speaking, that someone will tell that you do not sound natural. Again, I beg to differ. What rehearsing gives you is that it gives you, through constant application, it is then going to make your performance come off natural when you deliver it. The more you rehearse something, the more it becomes second nature to you. If we have some musicians in the audience today, you'll agree with me that when you are learning to play an instrument, say guitar, with each level of practice, deliberate at that, you're going to get so good at it that the next time you're holding a guitar in your lap, you will not need to bend over to look at which string you have to be strumming, because through constant application, I keep emphasizing this, your fingers are going to learn how to maneuver across the body of the guitar, since it has now become second nature. The same with public speaking, that through constant rehearsal, you are going to come off natural, so much such that whoever is listening to you will think that you were just simply born knowing how to speak this great. Again, as I said, I want to remind us, you too can be a great public speaker if you constantly apply yourself. The other thing I want to hint on when we are talking about conquering stage fright and projecting confidence, appearance. Appearance is a great factor in how confident you're likely to project yourself. When you show up, and I like to give an example of how appearance is very critical in any endeavor. I recall a time when I was joining law school a couple of years or so, decades ago. On our first day in class, we were told to select what usually, or what now people call a class president. Now, having known from my elder brother who had studied at the school prior, I was told that you need not show up dressed in a suit, because then everyone at the university campus will know that you are in your year one, you're a freshman. So I tried to look hip. And what that meant is that I showed up in that law class looking like, I don't want to stereotype, but not looking like a law student. Let's say that. And lo and behold, it was on that very day that then the guild government decides to call us in and say we're going to elect our class president. Now, I knew that this is a position that I wanted to take on, and I wasn't about to let it slip through my fingers just because I wasn't dressed for the part. So I stepped up and I gave my manifesto. Now, the two other individuals that I was rallying against, a female and a male, were fully dressed as a law student would. I believe we all know how that vote went. At the end of the day, for everything that I had to say in my manifesto, it truly came down, and this could be heard from the remarks of the students. It truly came down to how I was dressed. I was not dressed for the part. And I like to say that as humans, naturally, we are tuned to have biases against a person from the moment we see them. Before anyone is able to hear you speak, they will see how you look like, which is the appearance. Do you want that to be the part that takes away from your message? Definitely not. So dress the part. It imbues a certain level of confidence in you when you dress in a way that, one, you're comfortable with, but also in a way that you believe suits the audience that you will be addressing. Dress the part. Appearance is key. What is the other thing? And I think at this point I will be wrapping up really so that I can let Geraldine come in and take you to the next component of this presentation. One of the other mistakes we make is that when we are presenting, we often think that the audience knows what we have prepared. It defeats logic in itself because you are the one delivering the speech. Why then should you do anything that supplants you from that position? Let me contextualize this. When I'm delivering a speech that I have time and again rehearsed, I know that I own this speech. I know every single corner of this speech, and as such, I will explore it at my own pace, but also, if I have to make detours, I know how to make them and still get back on track. What usually happens is that when we have rehearsed and practiced, we think that for us to appear exceptional while we speak, we have to stick to the script, and any deviation will easily be seen by the audience. That has never been farther away from the truth. What is true is that you own that story. And I want to encourage us for every single time we have to speak to know that the story is yours, so tell it your way. There's something that we often like to reference when we are talking about speeches that have gone otherwise than expected. We like to encourage people and tell them there are 3 types of speeches. There is the speech that you prepare. There will be the speech that you're actually going to deliver. And lastly, there is a speech you will wish you had delivered. Now, which of these speeches do you think is the most important? It goes without saying that it is the speech that you actually deliver. At that point, any other speech is useless. It doesn't matter that you had prepared a speech that was in frame A and ended up playing with frame B, or wished you had used frame D. At the end of the day, the speech that you delivered is the speech that we shall remember, and we shall gauge you, we shall judge you as an audience solely based off the speech that you have delivered. Again, remember, it is the speech that you deliver that matters most. It is your story, so own the story and tell it your own way. And as I wrap up this segment, one other thing that I still have to re-emphasize. You are only going to be a master at any art by any means, through constant application. So embrace the toil, take it in, and you'll definitely see the fruits of doing so. Thank you for listening to me. Over to you, Geraldine.
Thank you, Brian. Indeed, preparation is very key to public speaking. But you might even wonder, what is public speaking and why are we here? Why does it matter? So I'll just take us a little bit back before we go forward. So public speaking is speaking in public, and public composes of 2 or more people. As simple as that. So why does it matter? Does anyone know why it matters? You might want to write in the comment section. Why do you think speaking in public matters? Right? Just write a few things there and let's all learn from you or hear your thoughts. But even as you write and as we go on, it matters because it's communication. Yes, sharing knowledge. It matters because it's communication. And we live in a world where we need to communicate. We can only advance, we can only make progress if we communicate. So why do we need to communicate anyway? Communicating gives you an edge. It helps you achieve what you want to do. It gives you a power. And if you're able to communicate very well, you're then powerful. You're able to leverage your technical skills with your communication skills, and then you thrive. I'm certain that majority of us here are technical in some way or the other, right? You might have different technical skills. You might be an engineer, you might be a coder, or whatever. But within your skill, within your field of your technical skill, you might know a person who has the same skill as you, but has another skill, a skill to communicate. And have you noticed that the people who have a skill to communicate are always getting opportunities to speak or opportunities to advance? Maybe they'll be on boards, maybe they'll be given promotions. Yeah? So that is why it is important. You're able to leverage your technical skill with your communication skill, and it gives you power, it gives you an edge, and then you're able to thrive, to go to greater heights. And I could say that if you have goals, I have goals for the year. I want to be better in certain things, and I'm sure many of you might have goals for the year or the month. You can only get better at your goals, or you can only achieve your goals sustainably if you're able to communicate effectively. So that is why it's important. Now, how then do you communicate? How do you become captivating? How do you become captivating? There are several ways that you can become compelling or captivating. And one of the things that we like to do, or in our classes, is that we like to show. So a golden nugget that we stand by is, don't tell, just show. Yeah. So it's the same thing when you're working with the audience that you're communicating to. And the audience could be anybody. It could be a technical audience. It could be a group of children. It could be your family. So don't just tell them, show them. And then you show them by engaging their senses. You want to engage their ears. You want to engage their sight. You also want to engage their imagination. When you take people on a sensory journey, engaging almost all the 5 senses, you get them hooked, and they're in there with you, and they will ride along with you along the journey. But before we get into how you can then do it, I want you to remember that as you're communicating, you are serving the audience. So it's not really about you. It's not about you per se, but it's about the message that you're bringing out and how that message then is received by the audience. Because at the end of the day, you want your audience to make a decision. You want to have your audience have some sort of information or make a choice or take away something at the end of the day. So remember, think of yourself as a conduit as you're communicating. And like Brian said, it is your story. Dress the part. Prepare. Now, how Brian has told us we can prepare, but now I'm going to just take you on a few things on how do you then prepare to be captivating and compelling. One of the techniques that you need in communication is storytelling. Tell a story. Everybody likes to listen to stories. I do. I like to listen to stories, and I like to tell stories. Stories have a way of captivating the audience. I like to tell stories to children. And when I'm telling stories to children, I get very animated, and I find my voice going up and down, and I'm doing all these things, and they're engaged and they're stuck with you, and then you have to be more creative. So the thing about stories is that they are memorable, especially if it's a personal story. And there are 2 ways you can tell a story. You can report the story like a newsreader where you're just reporting, or you can decide to relive that story. I prefer to relive the story, and I find that reliving a story is more engaging. So what do I mean by reliving a story? I mean getting into the detail of the story. I'll give you an example. Reporting a story could be something like, on 22nd February, I went to the shop and I bought a loaf of bread and a kilo of sugar. And when I was leaving, it started raining. So I ran and then I reached home. That's just reporting a story. This is what happened. Yes. But I could decide to relive that story. And I tell you, on the 22nd of February, after a long day, I was exhausted. I had to beat the traffic. I sat in a slow traffic and I looked out the window and I wished I was walking like a little old woman on the road. But then I thought to myself, it's so hot. I am so glad I am in this vehicle. And slowly by slowly, the traffic shifted. Before long, I was like Mama Jenny's shop. I got out of the car and walked in, had my pleasantries, and got a loaf of bread, a half kilo brown bread. And when I got out, when I did that, I remembered I needed a kilo of sugar. I got that as well, and went and paid to the counter. As I was leaving the shop, out of nowhere, the clouds were dark, there was so much wind, and it started raining heavily. And I had to run quickly into the car. And I did that. My hair was wet. I was so upset, but I was so glad that it was raining because it had been so hot the past 3 weeks. Get the difference? I've engaged you with so much detail. Now, the beauty about telling a story is that it takes your audience on a journey, like I just did. So stories are a good way to take people on a journey. I recommend that you use personal stories either of yourself or someone close to you. Those are things that people do not forget. Usually, if you're telling someone else's story, make sure you have the facts right, because someone else in the audience might have those facts. So if you're going to use a story of somebody else, make sure that your facts are on point. Now, moving on. Your body actually enhances your communication. How? Moving your body. Things like gestures, hand gestures, smiling, facial expressions, smiling, all these express emotion. Hand gestures. Hand gestures express what you're trying to say. It can also be used to describe something. For instance, if I want to describe the height of something or the breadth of something or emphasize a point, I will do that. Also, if I still want to emphasize something or the seriousness of something, I might lean in towards my audience and then step back. But the body is a very strong tool when it comes to communication. It actually it contributes about 50%. Non-verbal communication contributes 50% of communication in general. So it's very, very important that you engage your body. But even as you engage your body, it's very key that your body is in tandem with your message. And that brings me back to what Brian talked about, rehearsing, practicing, and going over and over in the toil. Smiling can help you send a good message if that's what you're aiming for. Or if you're talking about something very serious that does not require a smile, you might not need to smile at that moment. Another way of engaging the audience and being captivating is by asking questions. The questions might be directed to the audience or they might be rhetoric. The thing about questions is that they get your audience thinking. For instance, if I asked you, when was the last time you saw a rainbow with both curves, full rainbow? You'll have to think about it, won't you? Yeah. Or if I asked you, when was the last time you witnessed rain and sunshine at the same time? You'll have to think about it. So that's the thing about questions. They engage the audience. They engage the audience's thought process. Yeah. You know, we live in a very distracted world, so you'd want to engage your audience by asking questions. Another way to engage the audience is by revealing a stuttering statistic. Yeah, something that just triggers people's interest. For instance, if I look at this call, we are about 40 people on this call, and I would say something like, okay, we have 40 people on the call. Did you know that it's 6:37 where I am? Did you know by 7 p.m. there would be a blackout? Okay, that's not a statistic. I know you're thinking it's not really a statistic, but I got your attention, didn't I? Yes, but statistics such as 20% of children aged between 0 to 5 years old get malaria every day. Something like that. Of course, that's not true, but it gets you wondering, okay, what? Yeah. The thing about statistics, and I must emphasize that you need to use right statistics, is that they also captivate the audience. They get them wondering, what? Is that true? Yes. Recently, in one of the classes that we had, one of the students told us that 20% of employees who have mentors have a higher chance of getting promoted. And I was like, that's interesting. Yeah. So statistics actually intrigue your audience. And the thing about statistics is that they remain with your audience. Like that just remained with me. Another way to captivate your audience is to use quotes. Quotes and statements that other people have said. When Brian was talking, he quoted Busi. He quoted Busi when he was talking. So the thing about quotes is that they give you credibility. They add value to what you're saying. You might be speaking on a particular topic, so it's relevant to quote people who have said something like that before. That just beefs up your message, and it gives you credibility, because it gives credibility to your message because someone else has spoken about what you're speaking about, or it actually just, enhances what you're talking about. So for instance, if I were to talk about the quote could be anything, and it could be from anybody, as long as you're giving them credit. If I were to talk about just generally how people are perceived and how relationships, and this just goes across any relationship, family and everything, work, everything. If I'm talking in that line, I might talk about something. I might quote Maya Angelou, who said, people don't remember what you said, people don't remember what you did, but people will always remember how you made them feel. Yes. Or if you're talking about something in line with I don't know, a motivation or keep going, you think about something. If you really want to motivate something, you'd really want to think about a quote. For instance, you'd quote Nelson Mandela, who said, "It always seems impossible until it is done." Yeah. So, and make sure that you quote the person. What quotes do is that they give credibility to your message. Another way to captivate your audience is to use your voice. So now your voice is like the most powerful tool that you have when you're communicating. And many times we are limited to just use one range of tone, which we usually call a monotone. But we can use so much. We can use our voice in so many ways to express emotion. For instance, if you're excited, you'd want to say, "I am excited about something." Yeah, as opposed to saying, I am excited about something. This tone does not display any excitement whatsoever. However, this tone does. Yeah. So use your voice to emphasize things. And when you're emphasizing something, you might want to raise your voice, and you might want to lower your voice when you're talking about something that is serious or dire. And even within the voice, modulating your voice, you want to speak with clarity. So it's very important that you have the right pronunciations of the words that you're saying, going back to practice, like Brian was talking about. But you also want to have, you want to be able to pause, and it's okay to pause. Now, pausing is powerful. How is pausing powerful? It gives emphasis to what you're saying. For instance, I like to say that a pause helps you materialize the emotion just before the pause. For instance, if I am talking about how devastated I was, I will stop so that you know that I was indeed devastated. Or if you're making a serious point, you might want to pause immediately after making that point so that it sinks in your listeners' ears that this is something to be held onto. In line with pausing and using your voice, there's something that we call speed, the speed at which you speak. So in some instances, you might speak quicker, and in other instances, you might speak slower. But with practice and with knowing what your message is, you learn how to lower your voice, you learn how to raise your voice, you learn how to speak quicker, learn how to speak slower at certain intervals so that your audience is carried along. Remember, it's not about you, it's about carrying your audience along this journey to make sure that their message is delivered to them. Yes. Another way of being compelling is know what you're talking about. Know what you're talking about. Do your research. When, like Brian said, the audience can know that this is a prepared speaker and this is not a prepared speaker. So show authority in the subject matter. That means you're going to research about whatever it is that you're going to talk about. Do your homework, do your research, and make sure that all your points are relevant to your particular topic and to your particular audience. I think I talked about the eyes. Brian talked about how the eyes are the windows to the soul. Connect with your audience. Look for people in the audience who you can connect to. Connect to them as you're emphasizing a point, and then move on to the next person. But you can also use your eyes to convey emotions. You can show excitement, or you can narrow them to show emphasis. Yeah. And another thing that might be helpful is being humorous, adding a little humor into your speech or into your delivery. That always gets the audience excited and smiling and happy and laughing. So do your research in terms of, okay, what might be a good entry, a good way to engage them in terms of humor. Say something that is light, say something that is engaging, say something that will get them excited and to pay attention. It's a good way to start off a speech. It's a good way to throw in, to grab the attention of your audience when you feel like you're losing them, maybe in the middle. And it's also a good way to end your speech. Yeah. But you have to be, when you're engaging humor, it's very key that you are aware of the context that you're in. Yeah. Which people are you talking to? Otherwise your joke might fall on deaf ears. Yeah. Yeah. And we do not want, you do not want to be the only one laughing at the joke, like the joke is on you. Yeah. Yeah. Those are some of the ways that you can be compelling. There's a lot more, and would be glad to hear a lot more from you. If you know any other ways that you can be compelling, please share in the chat, and let's learn together. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Over to you, Daudi.
All right. Thank you very much, Geraldine. A round of applause for Geraldine and Brian on a very insightful session. I've learned quite a bit. I've been taking some notes here. So thank you. Without wasting any more time, I would like us to dive into the Q&A session. There's some questions that have come through the chat. We shall answer those first. After which, if you've got any questions, just raise your hand, use the emoticon on the app, and then I will ask you to unmute and ask your question. But to kick us off, there's a question from Ronaldo Watmon who asks, and this can go to either Brian or Geraldine. I'll put it to Brian since he's been quiet for a while. Does speaking in front of a mirror help in any way when it comes to preparation of a speech or becoming a better communicator? Does speaking in front of a mirror help? Brian?
All right. The short answer to that is yes. It really does help. And in the segment where I was talking about preparation and particularly rehearsing, it is one of those modes that you can use when you are rehearsing. And speaking in front of a mirror, what it does for you is that then you're able to see the image of the speaker. And the speaker is you. So speaking before the mirror also gives you that advantage to see how you look like when you are presenting. The other ways of doing it is as you rehearse, you could simply record. And there's two modes that we usually encourage people to utilize. One, there is recording yourself without the audio, rather the video. So that is you're only recording the audio and listening in. Some of the things that Geraldine talked about concerned issues such as pitch or volume, the pace at which you speak. The only way you're going to track that is if you are recording and listening in. So do that as well. Record audio only and listen and see or listen to how you sound. Do I want this to be as high as this? Do I want this to be moderated this way? The other way is through video. Video as well can work. That again, just like the mirror, the video is going to give you that image of the speaker. So all in all to say, practicing before a mirror is very helpful. Certain times, if you have the liberty to, you can also invite friends or family to listen to you if you had a speech to deliver and just present before them so that then they can give you feedback later. So those are some of the different modes that you can utilize as you are rehearsing, as you are practicing. Review and record.
Thank you very much, Brian. This one's for you, Geraldine, and feel free to supplement Brian's points if you have any regarding the topic of the mirror. But your question it's coming from Kenneth, who asks, some people fear to speak publicly because, one, English might not be their first language, and two, they might not have the vocabulary or expression in terms of words and quotes and all those things that a native English speaker might have. So what can they do to overcome this and still communicate effectively?
Thank you, Kenneth. That's a very good question, Kenneth. If you do not have, if English is not your first language, your vocabulary is a bit low, you're afraid of speaking because you do not have enough resources, if I could say, to start you on the journey, it's okay. Start from where you are. Start with the little that you have. You might not even speak in English. You might speak in your local dialect. But the thing about the principles of public speaking is that they do not know a language. They do not know a language. You can use them across any language. So Kenneth, I do not know what your first language is or which language you're most comfortable in, but use that. Use that to communicate. Practice, like Brian said. engage your audience, use your eyes, tell a story. Yes. And if you want to do that with English, use a little that you have. Use a little that you have and practice. And if you want to go further with that, I always recommend that you get someone to help you, get a coach, get someone to help you along the way. At Soki, we have we run master classes where we work with people from different backgrounds and help them become better speakers, become better communicators, express themselves more. So do not look at your limited vocabulary as a limitation. Just look at it as an opportunity to learn. So that's the short answer.
All right. Thank you very much, Geraldine. The next one is for Brian.
I think Brian has something to say.
Oh, yes, Brian, please go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to supplement because the question that Geraldine was answering has touched something that I'd also seen in the chat. I don't know if it was the same person, but I know that there is someone who was asking about issues with the tongue. I think he said, have a heavy tongue. Often I'm saying something in my mind, but what comes out is something totally different. And then he had also hinted on vocabulary. I particularly remembered it because he had hinted on vocabulary. And I'll start with the vocabulary issue because that's what Geraldine was talking about. And for me, in seeing that question, the first response that comes up is build it. Build your vocabulary. And how do you build your vocabulary? You read, you write, but also you watch others. That is something that I know. And many times it doesn't seem very obvious to individuals, but the more that you read, for example, other people's work, and I'll use the analogy of some of the greatest writers, you'll find that they are great because in one way or another, they've also immensely been exposed to a number of writing styles. And what happens with our learning processes is that the brain, sometimes inadvertently, picks up things and are stored within our experience. And therefore, when we are doing something, they'll still seep out. They seep out in a way that we cannot notice, but you agree with me that by and large, at the end of the day, we are a total sum of our experiences. So widen the scope of your experiences when it comes to vocabulary. Listening to great speakers enables you to pick out or pick up great usage of language as well as words, but also reading various works does the same, and at the same time writing. And then to just get to the issue of the heavy tongue that he mentioned, sometimes he's unable to articulate, if I should call it that. And again, what I can say is practice. And I like to give an example of what used to happen. When I was growing up in my primary school, we had a teacher of English who used to amuse us a lot because he would emphasize what he would call enunciation. Enunciation. And one of the practices he used to have was surrounding the word pronounce. Yes? So he would tell us, and the entire class would have to do it by simply telling us, read this word. And we would read the word as pronounce. And he would go on to tell us, say, pronounce. So with each take, we were learning how to explore the curves of that word so that if we were to speak it, it was very well defined. And that speaks to the element of clarity. You want to speak in a way that doesn't sound like you are mumbling. And even when he would further take that word and in its other form, for example, in you saying pronunciation. So we would spend time just pronouncing the word pronunciation. And so even as you are trying to beat this challenge, I would encourage you to be very deliberate in how you pronounce. So enunciation is key to you beating this challenge. It's the only thing that I can say. And so that said, I do agree that definitely your background, because even then in your comments you wrote there's background of the school you went to matter in how everything pans out. It does, but then ultimately that does not have to be your story. You can beat that by being very deliberate about the steps and interventions you are taking. So be very intentional, and I'm sure that your issue with the heavy tongue, as you described it, and also vocabulary, can be beaten. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. I love the questions and answers that are coming in. We have one here from Adesewa, and this one I'll direct it to Geraldine. What is the best way to open a speech? In other words, how do you grab their attention? What are some of the ways we can do that?
Great question. Thank you for that one. Some of the best ways to grab the attention of the speech is what I've been talking about. Start with a story. A story is a good way to captivate an audience. Yes. Then you can also use a statistic, a staggering statistic or a staggering fact. Use that. Or you can ask a question. It could be rhetoric, or you could want the audience to then be involved. Ask the questions, and that immediately grabs the attention. And also, it also depends on who your audience is. If it's children, you might want to do something. You might want to be elaborate and maybe clap your hands loudly or just be very extra. Yeah. So the key to captivating your audience is knowing your audience and knowing what your message is. And at the end of the day, what do you want your audience to take away? So that will inform how you're going to start your speech. It could be a story, it could be a statistic, it could be a question. Yeah, those are some of the key ways that you'd want to engage them and hook them from the start. Thank you.
Thank you, Geraldine. Brian, this is now your question, and it comes from Baldwin. So Baldwin asks, what is a good example of a basic speech structure? What are some of the best ways to lay out a speech, beginning to end, that one can feel confident delivering?
All right, and it's indeed a good question. And what I can say is you probably had this before, that for a speech, in terms of structure, we have an introduction, and then we have a body, and then we have a conclusion. And the parts that I've just stated could take on various forms, because there isn't any particular silver bullet I can give you in terms of this is how you start. As Geraldine said, there are a number of ways you could start that speech. So your introduction could be that way of you easing us into what you're going to be talking about. An instance I can give is when you introduced me and you said I had to speak. At that point, I could have simply started off my speech by saying, well, the SOCI Initiative is an organization that deals with leadership and communication skilling. I did not do that. My way and style of easing into that question was in talking about the art of public speaking itself and how to overcome the challenges that beset many isn't something that is unique. And in that still, I gave you a hint of a nugget that I thought each and every one of us could take home in order to beat those challenges. And at the end of the day, I simply likened SOCI to the magicians who are coming to unravel this mystery. And that is what we do at SOCI Initiative. That way, you can see that using various styles, we can be able to get into an introduction. And then after that, the body. And for me, the body was really talking about the art of public speaking, but particularly centering it on conquering stage fright as well as building or projecting confidence. And later on, concluding. So you want to look at those as the three basic components of a speech: the introduction, your body, and conclusion. Yes.
Thank you, Brian. Tajiel also has a question. I hope I have pronounced your name well there, Tajiel. And his question, this one goes to you, Geraldine. How do you control your voice from shaking even when you're nervous? Often when we're delivering a speech, sometimes our voice quivers or shakes, and it is very evident to the audience that we're nervous. So how or what tips do you have for us to control that shaking of the voice?
Very great question. I know many of us can relate. Nerves, things that you wish you could get rid of. I wish there was like a cure for it, right? Take a pill. Yes. But the thing about nerves is that we all get nervous. We all get nervous. And one of the ways to control your nerves is to just breathe. Just breathe. Take a moment. Deep breaths. Deep breaths, breathe in and then out. Breathe in. This is before your speech. Breathe in and then out and relax yourself. You might even want to take a walk. Might want to leave the room before. Take the walk. Come back in, breathe out, and go up to the stage. And when you're on the stage and you feel the nerves coming on, take a break. Pause, just pause and breathe in, breathe out. That's one of the basic ways to get rid of the nerves. But another classic way of getting rid of the nerves is preparation. Usually when you're not prepared, you'll panic. You'll definitely panic. So like Brian said, preparation is very key. Rehearse. Rehearse is not cramming. Rehearse is going over what you need to say, how you're going to say it, and how do you want the audience to then receive this message? Preparation is a very key component in mitigating those nerves. So breathe and then prepare. And also sometimes we are panicking because we think we're not good enough. We're not good enough. And like Brian said, it is your story. This is the version that you have. You have prepared for it. Just be confident in that. Yeah, you don't have to know everything about everything to then deliver. Know what you have, prepare what you have, and deliver what you have. And breathe. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Geraldine. Brian, do you have anything to add to that?
I think what Geraldine talked about, I just wanted to emphasize that and say that oftentimes nervousness is a sign or symptom of some other underlying factor. And some of the factors that he talked about are self-doubt, ill preparation, and you have to help yourself by trying to mitigate those. I mean, things such as simply coming to the venue where you're going to be speaking at much earlier could help you. Imagine if you're running late and you are the MC, the day's MC. You're not going to settle into your role quite easily because then you're trying to catch your breath and then there you are. It will be a lot. So come early, settle in the audience, talk to people, because either way, these are the people you're going to be addressing. Talk to them. It helps lighten the mood. And of course, nervousness really manifests differently for different people. That those whose voices will be shaky, that those whose body will be trembling, that those who will be visibly sweating. There are certain things, some of which we cannot say we can offer you, as Geraldine said, a very quick fix. But again, preparation for me, I think, lies at the core of overcoming this. I think there's a quote, I forget who said it, but he said that, I think it is Dale Carnegie, and he said that only the prepared speaker deserves to be confident. And many times you find that to be true. So again, emphasize it, preparation.
Thank you very much, Brian. The only thing I can add to that is whenever you find yourself in a public speaking setup, just know that the audience is rooting for you. They want you to do well, and that in itself should give you some sort of confidence, because nobody wants to sit there and watch somebody bomb or suffer. They are rooting for you. So just take heart and know that regardless of how nervous you are, the audience is supporting you. Right. So we've got a few remarks here. They're not necessarily questions. They're just comments, and perhaps you can build on them or highlight on what they're talking about. The first one is from Ronaldo, and he says, I think it is important to put oneself in a challenging position. So for instance, when you find yourself in an association or a group, take on a leadership role, because that will then force you to have to speak to people. So that is a way in which he's encouraging us to build our public speaking skills, is put yourself in situations where you speak publicly more often. Do you have anything to complement that, Brian?
Yes, and I think he's spot on. You have to keep challenging yourself. And you'll notice that in all this, I like to give examples of elite athletes. And what I say is, for example, if Eliud Kipchoge had to run in London, Eliud is going to practice or to train in high altitude areas. It happens a lot of time. Even when he was trying to beat the 2-hour mark for the marathon, you find that he trained in a higher altitude area only to perform at an area that is low altitude. It happens even in various kinds of trainings that for you to ace, many times you have to put yourself in situations that are more challenging than what you actually have on your plate. That way it becomes very easy. So I agree with Ronaldo in saying that it is a good point.
Right. Geraldine, anything to add?
Nothing really happens in the comfort zone. Nothing really happens for you in the comfort zone. You have to get out of that comfort zone for you to grow. So yes, most definitely find places, find opportunities or create opportunities for yourself to speak. It could even be at home, like address people at home or in the office or anywhere. Find opportunities to speak. If it's in a meeting and you'd have nothing to say, agree with someone who has given a point and just say, yes, I just wanted to say I agree with you. Well done. For opportunities. But then also another way to challenge yourself to get better is to proactively take on classes to get better. And at Soki, we offer those. It's good to see some of our alumni on the call. Very good to see them. I think it's a testament that the classes we offer are a good place for them to grow. Yes, so challenge yourself. Get into a platform where you can be challenged to grow every day or in every session, and give them feedback.
Yeah, which I think, just to add, which also points to the fact that you want to surround yourself with people that are intentional about the same journey, because then that helps you. And sometimes surrounding yourself with people that are also better than you, ahead of you in the journey, will help you grow. So find those spaces wherever they are and plug in. Yeah.
Right. The one that comes to mind for me is giving a vote of thanks. I've been in so many spaces where we're asked to give a vote of thanks. So I think this is a call to action for all of us on the call to be the vote of thanker, if that's a title. Right. So Adesewa also has a question, and this is to do with gesturing. She asks, what postures or body language should we avoid while speaking? And then Rhoda supplements that by saying, are there any that can be too much? For instance, somebody's hands are moving too much, or they're doing something excessively. So it's a 2-in-1 question. The first one is, what do we avoid? And the second one is, how do we control over gesturing while we speak? So posture and gesturing is Adesewa's question. What are the bad ways to gesture or posture as we speak? I'll hand that over to Geraldine, and then Brian can come in after.
Okay. One of the horrible postures, and it's in a live audience or even on a virtual audience here, is slouching. It just doesn't show confidence. It's good to stand up straight or sit up straight, and it just gives you a lot of poise and confidence. It displays confidence. Another gesture that is a bit of a pet peeve is really holding your hands at the front of your body or behind, or evidently fidgeting with your hands, with a pen or something. Those are not very good postures. Or standing at weird angles. You're talking to the audience ahead of you, but you're facing this other side. So who are you talking to? Unless it's something that you're trying to emphasize within your speech, but it's good for you to face your audience, have an open stance and face them. I don't remember the other part of the question.
The other part was over gesturing. How do you avoid repeating the same thing over and over and it losing its value?
Some of the things you get them when you get feedback. You can only be aware of them when you get feedback. And the easiest way to get feedback is, like Brian said, record yourself. Record yourself and watch yourself. But it's very possible that you will miss these things if you're not being guided. Yeah, you might miss some of these the things that you're doing over and over. You might not know that they're destructive. For instance, pacing all over the stage. You might not think it's an issue, or swaying. You might not think that swaying is an issue unless it's pointed out to you. So it's very important for you to be in a place where you're able to get feedback that is going to help you grow.
Thank you. Brian, do you have anything to supplement the two questions?
Yes, just to say that a number of things that attend to body language in a way have been engineered by nature. I like to say that many times we do or we gesture certain ways not because someone has deliberately told us, but it's nature's way of conveying a certain emotion. So many times your body will move a certain way because it's been engineered that way. And this again goes back to what Geraldine was saying, that you are going to have to be very deliberate about letting others see you in order to give you feedback. One thing that I usually say is, and I like, Geraldine perhaps talked about it, that we've conducted some classes with children as young as 5 and 6. And you'll find that even with the children, you need not teach them, but just demonstrate something and ask them what is wrong with what is happening. I remember one time I stood when I was speaking to them and I faced eastward when they were right in front of me. And they told me, are we stinking? Why aren't you looking at us? Why do you have to look the other side? And then also simply I was speaking to them, and then all throughout I put my hands behind my back. And what they told us was, are you under arrest? Seems like you're not comfortable talking to us. And these are children, meanwhile. They're just observing what is happening. So I imagine that in an adult's mind, the same happens really. When they're looking at you speak to them, they'll pick up cues from your body and wonder, is this person comfortable with us when he speaks to us? Why isn't he looking me in the eye? Whenever I try to meet his stare, it's darting. Something is wrong. Something is off about this individual. So that is how important body language is. But then also you talked about the issue of over gesturing, for example. If you are on this call and throughout my presentation, I had my hands all over, even without you noticing, you're going to be distracted. You're going to be distracted from what I am actually saying. And so that, as a speaker, really does a dent to how effectively you're going to communicate. So you want your gestures to be very measured and deliberate. Measured. Sometimes I go ahead to even encourage some speakers to think of it as you have a very small rectangle ahead, in front of you, and you try to contain the gestures that are going on in that small rectangle. Do not be the speaker who is fanning themselves up when they speak. You want to be very measured when you have those gestures. I think that is what I can add. But the same also goes for swaying or for holding objects that keep moving while you're speaking. It is distracting.
Thank you very much, Brian. I am looking at our clock and we're 15 minutes past time. I know there is so much we can cover when it comes to this topic. So I guess we'll have to call you back to expound on this wonderful session. I haven't seen any more questions from the chat, so I believe everybody is satisfied. And there was a remark from Carl Matthew asking whether we have e-certificates for these sessions. Carl Matthew, unfortunately, we do not have certificates for these free webinar sessions. However, if you do embark on our paid courses as well as Soki's, then you will get a certificate. So as we wind up, I just wanted you, Brian, in a nutshell, to tell us how people can learn these skills in a hands-on way through Soki. Where would they sign up? Where would they find you? And if they want to learn more and continue on this journey of public speaking, how do they do that?
Yes, and thank you, Daudi. What I have to say is we've curated an experience that would be worth your while if you really wanted to continue on this journey of bettering yourself. It is only through, as I said again, constant application that you're going to become better at anything. It need not necessarily be public speaking, but anything, any art that you're trying to master. And at Soki, we have a masterclass that we run, and as we speak, there is a call for those that are interested. There is a call already. I don't know if Geraldine can be able to share, but if she's not able to share that, I would also request her to share a link, because what we did was, for those that are interested in still being in touch with us, but also getting to know what we have to offer, to just register in that form. It is really you just putting down your name and your email address, any way that we can contact you to be able to then give you more information. So besides the masterclass that we have, we also have an ebook that we've just accomplished. And what is happening is everything that we've talked about today, you will most likely and much more find in that ebook. That ebook will also be up and running this week, hopefully. And if you are interested, again, through the form that Geraldine will share, you're able to just note your contact details and we will share a link to that ebook for you. Of course, it is a paid one. It is not a free book. So you would have to part with some pocket change to be able to access this book that details the essentials of public speaking. That said, the organization is Soki Initiative. That is SORKI Initiative. Feel free to follow us on our LinkedIn, on our X. Yes, really, just follow us if you would love to know more about us, but also make sure that you register. The link has been shared, I believe, by Geraldine.
All right. Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you so much, Geraldine. Thank you so much, Soki Initiative, for this wonderful session. I can see the link is there. Maybe, Geraldine, you can also add your email in case somebody wants to reach out, perhaps when they have any other questions beyond registering. Otherwise, I would like to thank each and every one of our guests, especially those that have participated actively. Ronaldo, thank you so much. Kenneth, Adesewa, Baldwin, Carl Matthew, Tajel, and everybody else. Rhoda, thank you so much for making this session a success. And I would also like to encourage you to visit our website. That is Global Age Leaders. That's GLOBALEDGE leaders.com. There you'll find various recordings just like this of different webinars that we have on various topics such as personal branding, how to leverage Zoom, AI tools, and even this session in particular. It will be available tomorrow as a recording, so you can rewatch this and write down anything that you may have missed. Share it as well. And also navigate or explore the various workshops that we have on Global Age Leaders. Other than that, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope to see you speaking on a public stage very, very soon, implementing the lessons that we've learned here today. So thank you, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.